This will be the last online lecture for Unit 4 on sensation and perception on the senses. We've covered the eye, the ear, and now we'll cover the other senses today. Starting with the sense of touch. Sense of touch is essential to development. If you think about a newborn who is totally dependent upon their parents, receiving that sense of touch is extremely important to them. And researchers have found that children, animals who have been deprived of the sense of touch from a caregiver, their brains are actually different than individuals who have been able to experience that sense of touch. With the sense of touch, we have pressure, warmth, cold, and pain. And there are these specialized nerve endings within our skin that make some spots of our body more sensitive to these types of senses of touch than others. If you think about the area between your thumb and pointer finger, that very thin piece of skin, that is extremely sensitive, especially to pain. Whereas the bottom of our heel, the base of our foot, is not as prone to experiencing those types of pain and warmth and cold. With pain, pain is a really cool thing. It's our body's way of telling us that something has gone wrong. And there are people who are born with a disorder where they don't feel pain at all. And that's actually very dangerous, because if you think about it, if you put your hand on something that's very hot, they don't experience pain like a normal person would. On the other end of the spectrum, you have people who feel pain all of the time, and where we might not experience pain by stubbing our toe, they're experiencing pain on an extreme level. And what they think, researchers think that these individuals who experience pain all the time have very, very sensitive nerve endings on their skin. We'll talk more about these individuals when we get to the health and stress unit later on in this semester. So pain is a cool thing because there's a biopsychosocial influence on pain. If you think about it, it's definitely biological, but pain can also be psychological. There are some individuals who have a very high pain tolerance and some individuals who can't really deal with pain at all. There's also social influences on pain. What westernized countries and perceived to be painful might not be the same as other societies experience as being painful. You might have heard of phantom limb. Someone who has had an amputation still experiences the sensation of that limb. A lot of times individuals who have phantom limb will experience itching in the limb that is gone. What's happening there is that the brain is misinterpreting activity in the central nervous system. This also happens with individuals who are blind. Sometimes they experience seeing things, maybe hallucinating, and also individuals who are deaf, they experience hearing tones in some way. One of the most important theories with pain is the gate control theory. This theory says that the spinal cord contains a gate, not really a gate, but a, quote, gate, that either blocks pain from being experienced or allows pain to be experienced. And what happens is the spinal cord has these very small fibers, and the small fibers are dedicated to the experience of pain. The large fibers are dedicated to sensory information. So when the gate is open, those small fibers are being activated. When the gate is closed, those large fibers are being activated. It either allows pain to be experienced or does not. If you think about stubbing your toe or cutting yourself, a lot of our kind of initial reaction is to rub the area in which we are experiencing pain. When we feel that pain, those small nerve fibers are being activated, the gate is open, we experience that pain, and when we're rubbing that pain, we're activating the large nerve fibers, that's sensory information, and the pain goes away. Now, if you think about it, if you've ever pulled a muscle or maybe even like broken a bone, you might not experience the pain right away. Again, that's because of the neurotransmitter endorphins, right? That adrenaline is pumping through your body and pain is not necessarily experienced there. Other ways you can kind of control pain are through distraction. You've probably seen, or maybe you've experienced yourself as a little child getting a shot, and the nurse usually distracts you, says, oh, look over here at this painting, and before you know it, they're already done administering the shot. Rubbing, again, is a way to control pain, and just breathing. Women who are pregnant sometimes take Lamaze classes where they really focus on breathing so that when they are giving childbirth, the pain is more tolerable. Now, the chemical sense of taste. There are 4 kind of basic tastes that we can experience: sweet, salty, sour, bitter. And there's a recently discovered 5th taste called umami. This is a Japanese word meaning savory or meaty. And this sensation is fuller in combinations that we kind of taste with meats and cheeses and other very protein-heavy foods. The chemical sense of taste occurs on our tongue and on the roof and the back of our mouth, and that we have taste buds, more than 200, that basically allow our taste buds soak up the food chemicals, and we're able to either experience that food as being pleasant or perhaps not so pleasant. Researchers have found that our brains are emotionally hardwired to prefer foods that are energy rich from an evolutionary perspective. And again, that shows kind of how all of psychology is combined. Now, with taste and smell, they're very much important for one another. Smell is also a chemical sense. What happens is the molecules of different things reach our nasal cavity, and the olfactory receptors within our nose allow us to smell things. Now, what I think is really cool with smell is that there are lots of areas of our brain that are devoted to this sense. Specifically, the limbic system, that emotional system, the amygdala, and the hippocampus are all involved with smell, which is why maybe you go to your grandparents' house and you smell the way that their house smells and it brings back these memories of your childhood. Or perhaps you smell something that has made you sick in the past and you have that visceral kind of angry, disgusting response to it. Women are better at smelling things than men, and the chemical sense of smell peaks with adulthood. There are individuals who cannot smell anything, and that disorder is called anosmia. Now, sensory interaction is important, especially with sight, taste, and smell. If you remember Heinz's green ketchup campaign, they don't sell it anymore. Why do you think that is? Because people did not like looking at this green ketchup they were eating, even though it tastes exactly like normal red ketchup. Just the fact that the sight is interacting with their chemical sense of taste, it wasn't a good campaign. They also tried the same thing with green Twinkies. Another example is if you see like a drink that's bright pink, you are going to experience that drink as being sweeter than what it really is, just because the color is. So our senses interact with one another, especially when it comes to sight, taste, and smell. Now, the last sense I want to talk about is body position and movement. There are 2 types of senses with body position and movement. You've got the kinesthetic sense and the vestibular sense. The kinesthetic sense is important for sensing our body's position and movement within space. So we've got this kinesthetic sense that deals with position and motion sensors in our muscles, tendons, and joints. And it kind of allows us to pick up things and walk in a straight line and, lift heavy things above our head. It's our sense of body movement. Whereas the vestibular sense mostly monitors our head and equilibrium in our ear. So going back to the ear, remember the fluid-filled cochlea ends up moving the hair cells. And what ends up happening is when the hair cells move, it's not just being sent to the temporal lobe. The information is also actually being sent to our cerebellum, which is responsible for balance and coordination and movement. Individuals who have ever had vertigo, which means their equilibrium in their ear is off, they often are dizzy or they cannot, in fact, walk in a straight line. I used to get really bad ear infections as a child, so bad that my eardrum burst, and I took gymnastics, and my doctor said, there's no way you can go and tumble because you literally will not be able to balance correctly. That's because my vestibular sense was thrown off by the equilibrium in my ear. Also, motion sickness can be caused by discrepancies between what we see and our vestibular sense. Again, the vestibular sense really involves with that equilibrium in your ear being completely and totally balanced. And the last thing I want to mention, and it's really just kind of cool, I don't think your book covers it at all, but it's a disorder called, I don't know if we call it disorder, but it's something that individuals experience called synesthesia. And Pharrell Williams has this sensation disorder. It's basically a neurological issue where when one sense is stimulated, it leads to another sense being stimulated. So if you look at the bottom of the PowerPoint where it says synesthesia, someone who has synesthesia, when they look at the words, literally their sight is being activated, but also they're seeing these letters in colors. Pharrell Williams gave an interview with NPR about this. If you click on the link, I'll click on it in just a second. He talks about it, but basically he says when he hears music, he sees colors. And when he produces songs, he knows that the tune is right when he sees these certain combination of colors being activated. It's really, really cool. It's very rare. But again, it's when the stimulation of one sense leads to the stimulation of another. I'm going to play the really short clip from the 7-minute interview where Pharrell Williams talks about his disorder.
Justin Timberlake, the former member of NSYNC, was trying to move beyond his boy band past.
He's a pop star, which was interesting because we got to use all of that like horsepower. But at the same time, he was an ambitious one and wanted to do things differently. And that's kind of like the way you do it. Got time, but I don't mind. Just wanna rock you, girl. I'll have whatever you have. When someone is gigantic, that's a responsibility because you have enough people listening, then you're supposed to be ushering in change. If you're not ushering in change, then you're just literally riding a wave, and all waves have a beginning, they have a peak, and then, you know, the sun sets.
As you can hear, Pharrell Williams talks about his creative process in visual terms a lot. The cresting wave, the sunset, the Mona Lisa. It's not a coincidence. He has a neurological condition that's called synesthesia.
The visual nerve ending and the auditorial nerve ending are connected, so they send ghost images to each other.
What are you experiencing that I might not be?
So when you're hearing music, you see it in color.
You're seeing colors when you're hearing sounds and hearing music.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know how it helps your mind work in a way that we might sort of feel with the music that you create.
Well, it's the only way that I can identify what something sounds like. You know, I know when something is in key because it either matches the same color or it doesn't, or it feels different and it doesn't feel right. Everybody get up.
This summer, Pharrell Williams.
Alright, so that is going to do it for the Sensation online lectures. Remember, you need to know information that's bold and blue. You need to make sure that that chart on the 5 senses is copied down. We will have a quiz on the eye, the ear, and all of the other senses tomorrow when we get back to school.